What is up, people? My name's Anton and welcome back to September. Today we're going to pick up where we left off yesterday with the render. I've got some assets that I kind of want to sprinkle on, and we're going to see what we can do to sort of pull this off and restylize it a little bit. I don't like the colour of the material firstly. There's a few little things which I might sprinkle about with like the nature of the simulation, and we'll see what we get. So we don't really have a result in mind. This is more going to be like a sort of more creative little sort of like mini series. I say mini series, it's 2 episodes long, but like just take a break away from the realism and just show the capabilities of some of these render engines and sort of develop your skills as an artist in general, hopefully with a few little tips that you might not know, just to show potential, right? That's kind of what I want to achieve. So without any further ado, I'll sort of explain where my head's at. So like I already said, one of the things I'm sort of got in my head is I don't quite like the green too much. Firstly, don't really fit with September, and secondly, when we take a look, it looks a little shiny and a little off, but like generally I think the render looks good, which is why it sort of seems to composite quite well. What I kind of want to do is take inspiration from the September logo itself, right? And have different colors attributed to different parts of the cloth. So if we can get some red going for the bold part of the September, so the TMBER, and then some white or grey for the SEP, I think that would look pretty sick. And I've also got some UV assets just here, which I just cooked up in Photoshop now. Nothing too crazy, but literally, like, I think there's a location in here somewhere. So if I just scroll through these, hopefully it lets me. It's got our location, London, England. Up next. Got some lorem ipsum text, just like place filler, right? New generation digital design, so going the branded route. And if I go, we got a copyright R and the Twitter, right? So literally nothing too crazy, but the workflow will likely be to do a little bit of look development inside C4D here before we bake everything off. Potentially head into Substance Painter just so we can texture over the glass and wax some textures here and there to add a little bit of interest. And we should be good to maybe do a little bit of final tweaking and lighting at the end and just get something a little more developed and polished off. So we got our first camera angle here, and just generally the simulation looks pretty good, but one thing I did spot is that there is a little glitch in the E here, which I noticed. So I'm going to pause the simulation and see if I can pick out a frame whereby it is sort of before that happens here. And hopefully, because we cached it last time, we shouldn't have an issue. So I'm just keeping an eye down here on where that frame is, and it starts becoming a problem past frame 30, right, which is sort of where the overpressure takes place. So if we even just go to like about frame 30, obviously if you're animating this, you need to bear that in mind, because that is a problematic frame and it will make your sort of composition look a little off, or very off, because it's going through the glass. So bear that in mind, that if you want to fix that, either up the collision passes or shorten your composition, I guess, are kind of your options. You can go back recomp and look, but for now that sort of fixes it and doesn't change the look too much. So that's one problem fixed. The camera angle I actually kind of like. I like the sort of isometric nature of it, right? And I played around with duplicating it and then sort of like dragging it out, and it looks even cool. It looks quite cool with the whole text even, right? So you can even do it like this and get sort of like an isometric render. Isometric means sort of like diagonal, quite well proportioned. You can thank the focal length in the camera for that. But even that looks quite cool. I was thinking of keeping something like this for me, could change the color of the text so you can sort of see the rest of the render. But for now, I think maybe even something like this we can work with. Material wise, I almost wanted to go for a mixture. So this looks quite cool, and I like how obviously this is a metallic material and we've got a bump which is sort of like making it look quite speckly. But I wanted something a little less textured and potentially like more canvassy. So from what I saw, there was a new grayscale gorilla material which I sort of took inspiration from. If we hop into here real quick and just drag into the plus library, there are some Play-Doh materials and whatnot, but there was one specific one in patterned canvas, I believe. These are really, really cool assets. Big, I've said this before, but massive props to Grayscale Gorilla. They have done wondrous things with like materials. They're the kind of assets that you'll click into and just look at the node editor and you'll be like, what? There's like ways of doing things that you didn't even think of. You'll learn new nodes. And I feel like it's quite common for people to release assets and they really like learn nothing. They just drag them in and use them. But these are assets that you can really learn from. So even though I've got my own business, I'm sending massive props to Grayscale Grid. They do an amazing job. And I think I grabbed something fairly simple, so I didn't want something too like bitty or too out there. Something as small as even maybe like these tiny splotches, right? You can drag these in real quick, and if we go about replacing maybe take a closer angle for just a sec once this generates. We can replace that material super quick, see what we're dealing with, and see what I meant is like for the SCP to be white, it looks quite nice with this render. It seems to go with the glass really well. Sort of gives a little bit of like, I don't know, monochromatic sort of like nature back to it, right? So if I just disable the glass super quick, my mouse double clicks a lot, by the way. If I ever like fluster or start like stumbling, it's because my mouse double clicking and it's really annoying. Okay, but taking a look, we've got our splotch sort of canvas here. Only comment I'd make is that it seems to be quite reflective for canvas, right? So that's something we can change fairly easily. We can head into node editor, and you'll see, even looking at this, you're like, shit, what? Like the way they managed to sort of composite these colors into layers and then puzzle mat. I guess so. The way I'm guessing they've done this is sort of they've got colors which they're attributing via a puzzle mat to these like channel pickers which get plugged into layers and then composited in this composite texture, which I didn't know existed. So you learn something new every day. But I think that's almost just fixed itself. I'm not sure what happened. Maybe I needed a re-render, but that is more going for the look that I like. I'm unsure about the color of these. If anything, I feel like I'd rather just have all of these set to white, so we can probably go about picking these just like this. Just get some white speckles in there if it lets me, and just like that, super subtle difference, but it gives a sort of like canvassy, a softer look, I suppose, which is kind of what I wanted. So if we were to run with that and take our simulation, so at this point probably what we want to do is bake it. So we're going to take a still frame approach for this. I'm going to save version up super quick so that if I wanted to render this as an animation I still could. And we can head to here and quickly hit C on that, and it should allow us to, cool. So we got our meshes one here, but we want to select the TEMBER, right? In fact, hold on, we want the subdivision back. May just serve us to, so we just do like a sort of polygon select almost. So if we take this off for now, we've got no strange like UV settings. So we take that off, we can head to our view here, and let me plug this into a view that we can see. So we go to our whole thing here, just zoom in a little bit. We can zoom out and get our face mode, head into our thing here. We can grab a rectangle selection, and we can grab, this is what we want to be grey, right? So we can, we might have a little bit of problem with a T there, so if we get a lasso or polygon selection, we're essentially selecting the faces here, and we're going to assign a material dependent on those faces, which is something you can do. So we can grab that, you can see it's separate from the rest of the text now, and we can literally get our material and plug that on there. Subtle difference, but that was now active on that. So if we wanted to duplicate that material and then head back into the node editor super quick and change the base color to, first we probably need to set that to aces, and if we wanted to take a look at, probably I think it's one of these, we need to actually see which one's active. Hold on. So if we quickly do the same thing for the rest of the text, so select up like this, grab that and drag our second material on here. Make sure you're dragging here and not on there. You see it's going to create this little polygon selection tag, and that's what's going to attribute the material to those faces in particular. So we can shoot that save real quick, head back into the base color and see which one of these tweaks it. So it's that one, which is perfect. So if we wanted this to be a nice sort of rosy red this side of the spectrum, we could up it a little bit to make it ever so slightly brighter. You can start to see the white speckles a little more now that it's a red. I kind of want this a little darker. I feel it looks a bit sort of offy, but something like this maybe a little more saturated. In fact, I might as well bring the saturation up because I'm aware that when I activate the glass again, it's going to sort of pace out a tiny bit. So if we just sort of get that, I remember from my last session that it kind of fixed it to increase the strength of the HDRI. So if we try that one more time and maybe double this to 10, you can see we're getting a lot of brighter results. So that's worked. So I'm happy about that. Otherwise, it would have been a lot of aces tweaking and stuff like that. But this seems to be pretty cool, and you're getting a nice, cool result there. So that's what I meant by changing the color. So I'm happy we've done that. Secondly, we can try and get some assets sprinkled on the glass here. So I'm not entirely sure about positioning as of yet. I reckon that might be a little bit of a trial and error type of situation. But if we head back in here, what we're going to need to do is firstly grab our glass. So that's our cloth surface. We can hit C on that to bake it. Take this. I have complete hope that the UVs are going to be absolutely murked without doubt. So we're going to need to re-UV that. Hopefully C4D does a decent job. So if we delete that and then just click on paint setup wizard, super like rough around the edges job, but it always seems to work. Hop to our cloth remesh, make sure everything else is off apart from this. Go into our extrude, just make sure we've got nothing weird, which is always activated. Should be sweet. We can hit next, optical cubic mapping. Make sure we're setting these both to 4096. Up and down, hit finish. Take a look at our result, any sec. Quite high geometry, so hopefully polygon count, so hopefully nothing crazy, but that seems to have worked quite well. Considering working with 4K, that should be pretty sweet. Could be a little more packed, but we will deal with what we can get for now from Cinema 4D. I've heard wonderful things about a software called Rhizome UV, which I've yet to get my finger stuck into, but that may be upcoming if I can get to grips with that, because I think that'd be pretty cool. Paint editor seems to get a little dull. So what we can do from this point is we can, this is going to be a test. There is a way you can select the polygons. No, real quick, wait, we need to make sure we get a layer. New layer, I believe it is, but where is it? Window, where's the layer editor? There is a layer manager. Is it here? Perfect. We need to head here, go to face mode, Control A, image, outline polygons. We've done it the right way, big ups. So now we can, first we've got a nicer UV there. That is if we want to edit in Photoshop, and I'm just doing it in case, but we'll probably have to use Substance Painter. We can then hit File, Save Texture, make sure we're saving it as PSD, go September, and that's going to save a little PSD that if we wanted to open that and sort of attribute the, you'd have to make sure you're like gathering which face attributes which side, but it should be pretty straightforward. Just doing this so you can do another method with Photoshop if you don't have Substance Painter. But for me, we should be able to copy this into a new project super quick, and export this as an FBX, a UV to FBX. Hit OK. September glass. Make sure we're saving that. And if all goes to plan, we can quickly head over to Substance Painter. We're going to be using the old technique of, not old technique, a few videos ago we sort of did a graffiti tag, sort of like scattering on an electricity box, and it's going to be the same sort of thing as that. So to get the assets on the September glass, we need to get the assets from Dropbox imported, import it to the resources, use those as textures, and set them to add. We can just generate a like white on black texture, hopefully, which we can then mix in Octane nodes, which shouldn't be too bad. So here we are in Substance. If we just super quickly grab our September FBX super quick, I'm hoping that when we paste it back into the original project as well, it will just paste across in the right position and we don't have to worry about anything too much. The cloth simulations are baked anyway. But for now, we can take our September glass, drag it in, make sure we've got it set to 4096 like we specified, hit OK. And if all goes to plan, we don't have any weird UV errors, we do not. And things are working smoothly. So now we can head to File, import resources, add resources, grab ourselves our assets, which is saved in Dropbox, I believe. UV assets, drag all of these, select them, hit open, hit Control A once you've got one of them, making sure click in texture, import your resources to library, your assets, might as well, hit import. These textures themselves are 3600 by 3600, white on black in Photoshop, PNG, nothing more to them. So what you can literally do now is create a new layer just for good practice in it, and you can start dragging these on and seeing where you want these to be. So we're just going to export these as base color, and we can hopefully fairly easily. Does it let us invert this texture at all? Maybe not, but maybe there's a any second. Hopefully one of these works. I really want it to be black on white. If not, we are going to have to invert it in Photoshop, but it doesn't need to be an issue. So if we just quickly grab a fill layer, set the fill here to black. I was kind of hoping there'll be a little invert tick somewhere. I'm used to that in Octane. And we can go back to here and sort of think about how I want to arrange this. So I was almost thinking of having this by the P here, but I'm also aware I've got some other stuff I really want to fit in. So let's take this and maybe scale this down a little bit. We can scale it down to here. We've got decent resolution, so we can mess with the detail. If we move it down maybe here, make sure it's boxed off nicely, fitted well, just like that. Looks pretty sweet. We can get our new generation digital design and sort of get an idea for that. So this, I almost like the idea of this being all the way over the text, literally from start to finish, right? So I wanted to see if I could pull that off. If we set this to physical size here, and in the 3D projection settings, quickly scale this up so that we have more room, we can then head to side. Oh, that was unintentional. Just like that. I believe we can set to size here. Now we need this way bigger, way bigger. So 500. Might even have to do 5000. Getting a lot of glitches here because it's trying to project it vertically, right? So not what we want. We can take that, we can rotate it like that. So set this to 270. I'm aware it's probably going to try to project it down the sides, but we can see how we can fix that. And maybe set this to typed in 5000 by accident, but it might have to be. We need to have this scaled a bit higher on the Y. 5000 is far too much. Maybe 1000. God, you want to be careful here. So maybe the M is sort of like more of a midpoint, right? But we're getting a little bit of a weird rotation there. So if we just shoot this, it's important that this is scaled, right? Otherwise it will look off. Something like that. Still want it to be bigger though. Something like that. I kind of like. Let's see how we can offset this. Bigger, even bigger. 1300. Sweet spot, nice. So we can just try that to about here. Select another layer so we can sort of see what we're working with. It does seem to paste it down the sides, but I'm not too fussed. It kind of looks all right. And I mean, if we sort of simulate our first angle, we have this. It seems to fade away, but is there a way we can fix this? Is there a way we can take a look here? Filtering UV wrap. It's the project. That's it. It's the project depth. So if we were to keep this like that, we have it plastered just on the front, which looks pretty cool. Or we could have it really tweaked down the sides. I almost think that looks better. In fact, I think that looks pretty good. I think we'll keep it with that. Otherwise, it almost seems like the glass is separated when it really shouldn't be. So if we take that and run with it, we should be able to set this just to linear dodge add and get the little London, England back there, which looks quite cool. We could grab our lorem ipsum and see how we're running with that. Make sure this is set to linear dodge add as well. And we can see where we want this. This is sort of, I just wanted this as like gap filler text. So where could we go? Got a T, E, we could really have it on there. E a little bit maybe. I'm going to scale this down. Turn the tile in. God, far too big. I think it goes quite side by side with the thing there. Maybe if we give it a little focus on the S. Kind of like the idea of it being there. Maybe if we scale this down a little more, give it a little bit of a rotation right to it. Kind of want it to be a little more visible without having it go down the wrong side. Maybe if we move this down, does it let us? It does. We can. So you get the idea of what I'm doing here. I'm sort of positioning it so they're square to each other, rotated the right way, and not looking janky at all, right? That's basically what it is. You've got a few parameters here which sort of let you do that. But now I feel like the text looks too big. So a lot of this is sort of like tweaking. We can drag this up super quick, and it's disappeared right out of the viewport. You can even have it above the new generation digital design bit here. Have it sort of offset ever so slightly. What if we try something like that? Thinking of maybe fitting it in this bit. So, like I said, trial and error, but it's okay. Fit it there. Move it down. I feel like it might fit quite nicely with the straightness of the W there, which I'm inclined to think may work, but this is still a little, very so slightly weirdly rotated. If we just knock that back, I really wish I could use my scroll wheel here, but something like this, and then move it down just a tiny, just a knock, just a touch. I feel like something like that would be pretty cool. Can mess with the projection depth again, sort of see what we like, but I don't want it to be too deeply projected this time. I kind of liked it just on that bit. So we can run with something like that. Well, it depends what you like. If you want it to run with the projection, we probably could. Although I don't like it. It looks a little streaky and sort of like glitched out to me. I kind of prefer it without it. Maybe we can get something else to sort of like fill up that gap there. So if we run with something like this, which looks pretty sweet, we can then get a new layer, go about adding our, got a new generation digital design there. We can get our Twitter somewhere, but this area is starting to look a little cramped. Maybe we can whack the Twitter somewhere else, which will be visible. So potentially on the T, although we're kind of running out of space because a lot of the letters are quite curvy. We can turn the tiling down, something like this. Make sure we're setting this to add, tiling this up ever so slightly, fitting that nicely on there, which looks pretty sweet. I think that looks cool. Could add some graphics here. A lot of this is sort of like typing. It's making it a little bit like a notebook, but just to show you can do some different kind of arrangement. This is still bugging me for some reason. I want it to be more sort of like spacey, or if I can't figure out a way, we may well have to just remove it out altogether, or have it just on the side here. Maybe that's not a bad idea. So we've got that lorem ipsum there. We need to scale this up. We'll set this to physical size and give this a little tweak. Let's give this a shot. So I kind of want it on the side here. We can see our text there, but it's far too small. We need to set the width all the way up, and set the offset of the X. Never mind. Z. Let's take a look at this. Get some pretty cool workflow tips here. if you're struggling with substance or positioning, like I am, you can take this, scale it down. Let's move this up a little more here, around the curve, so it kind of like fits with the camera angle. It's the Z that we want, I remember. Drag that round, just there. Just there. Let's see how that looks. I feel like that looks better than what we had before, even though it's a little stretch, but that's just a UV distortion. Potentially we can, is there a way we can sort of like scale this? Oh, that's the whole scale, so it's not what we really want. How do I redo now? Redo triplane of projection translation. Thank you. But you can probably quit this, shoot this a quick save. Asset blocking, I guess. We can just bearing in mind this is sort of warped ever so slightly. I kind of want to avoid that if I possibly can. So if we just simulate the thing, that is not what looks good. If we take the X and just, it's getting plastered on the top bit too, which is a projection depth issue, I think. Yeah, so we can just drag that down, start tweaking this again, maybe something more like this I kind of like, so it sits nicely under that and doesn't seem too bad. So let's run with that for now. It looks better than where it was before, and it keeps the sort of like depth of the glass without making it look separated. I didn't like the way that it was just on the front there and not on anything else. I feel like it kind of lost an element of the look. And we can grab this now, and I think we should just run with the idea here. So we have an R which we can fit in somewhere. I'm thinking of literally moving that either there or there. Trying to think where would look better. Maybe up here, or we could even have it somewhere else, but I don't want to clog it up if I can help it. So maybe we can just drag it here. Let's grab our base color, make sure we're setting this to add, and hopefully, hold on. All right, so I got my layers back. All right, we've got the layers back. So we can set this to add real quick. Make sure our projection step is a little lower. It's quite small, so I'm hoping this doesn't cause me too much hardship. We can set the tiling down and just have this sitting pretty right there. We can click off the layer super quick so you can see what this looks like. You need to be a little bit smaller, just ever so slightly smaller. We can just move this up there nicely. Obviously, bear in mind the resolution of your UVs tells a lot about this sort of workflow. I'm working 4096, but with the Cinema 4D UV, and it always seems to be a little lower than I'd like. So work with distance and compositing to sort of like fix that, or you can UV in a better way than I do. But for now, we can take something like this, and let's keep this going. So we can now head to File, Export Textures. Bear in mind, it's just gonna be white on black. So we can find out where we want to export these. We can set this to set glass. Just like I said, always make sure you keep making new folders, because I've just had bad experiences with like textures replacing, and then it all gets replaced in Octane, and it's a pain in the, yeah, you get it. So if we set these to select folder, set the app template to Arnold AI standard size, leave that, and you can just hit export, and then it's just the white and black that we want, like we said. So if we just quickly handy little button here, open output directory, you can find exactly where it was. We find which one we want. I was going to say we need to invert in Photoshop, but we don't even need to. We can just head back into C4D here, hop into Octane, get our projects back loaded up, and if all goes to plan, we should just have a little diffuse that we can attribute to the September glass. So if we set this to render super quick so we can see what we're doing, we can get back on track. And for some reason the material is just gone. What is happening Oh, that's the, let's get rid of that. Perfect. Worried there for a sec. Sweet. So we can probably just toggle this off for a sec so we can focus on the glass and make sure that's working nicely. And give it a quick zoom in. Hop into our material. We've got this octane specular material here. We can just zoom that in, come into our node editor, and we can play around with a few bits. So if we grab our glass bit, I think it's just the base color that we need. We should be able to just drag this, drag this in like this. If we attribute that to we don't even have an albedo channel, which is annoying. So we'll need to get a quick octane material here. We'll have to get the same texture super quick. I already had it open, didn't I? Yeah. Drag that in there. Plug that in here. You won't be able to see what you're doing quite yet, but we can. Hold on. We've just created that material inside of nothing, apparently. There we go. Replace that. I've just created a fused material with the things on, and you can see it looks pretty sweet. So we know the UVs are working. That's great. We want this to be the other way around though. So I'm hoping we'll be able to do is set this to invert, beauty, duplicate this, and then use this as opacity. So we can plug this into opacity, and we know this is the wrong way around. Or do we? No, we want this to be inverted, don't we? And then we can plug that into opacity. And have this like that, I believe. And if all goes to plan, we can grab our specular. I think it was 1. I'm not sure if there's a difference between 1 and 2. We'll find out shortly. If we head to node editor, grab our octane material, drag it in. We've got 2 octane materials in the node editor now. We can get ourselves a mixed material. I didn't even need the opacity there, but that was just to test I was doing the right thing. This seems to be doing the right thing, so we can grab that, plug that in, get the thing, the opacity map as the amount, drag that octane mix material on the cloth surface here, and we've got our glass with the black on it. Although it almost looks a little, ever so slightly off, or like there's a little rim to it, which looks a little weird. So, bearing that in mind, maybe we can set the octane mix material here. Wait, what happens if we unplug the opacity to that? You see what I mean about having this very slight thing here, but hopefully that's not an issue. I've got the Lawrence, which looks quite interesting there. I just butchered that, by the way. That's not how you say that in Latin. Let's give this a little tweak, see if we can make any looks look better. We can invert this over, so we're working with white. Yeah, that kind of fixes it, to be fair. Let's invert it real quick and run with it. We can change this to a glossy material, so we're getting some reflections on the actual things, which look quite cool. I'd be inclined to hop into our favorite camera angle super quick and just see what we're working with here. You can see we're getting some nice reflections, but if I invert this back, it might actually bring us some nice reflections. I think specifically because this, these letters all have the grey behind them, just like this. It looks a little cooler, and I'm actually kind of liking, the style of this here. If anything, let's just, for the sake of it, take one last look at what this looks like. Black, but this is the look that I was going for. This is what I had in my head. If you just look at it one last time, maybe set the color space to aces. I'm unsure. Obviously, it's white and black, so I'm not sure how much difference that's going to do. I do seem to like the black a little more though. And I do like the glossiness of it too. Maybe let's take a look at that other camera angle, see what it looks like across the whole text. It looks pretty cool. Maybe we can even grey it out. Or because we've got a black background. You can go in between here, but obviously this is varying to what your sort of like taste is. I'm actually unsure, but I think I quite like it black. You can change that to, you can probably just grab a color correction node and drag that down here. start playing with gamma if there's a sort of like more grey that you want. In fact, this seems to be fixing our white problem. So the more you know. We don't have any white bits around the outside now. I do kind of want it to be grey though. Maybe we can brighten it up. Is there a way of doing that? Can we set the brightness to like 2? Apparently not. Maybe like the exposure. Techie. Maybe we can. Definitely is a way you can do it. I'm sure of it. You could probably just grab the same thing, get a add, or rather mix, literally plug them into each other, set the amount to 50, and you'll have a little blend there that you can plug that into the texture. Set the amount to 0.5, while making sure one of them's different. And then you can sort of like wiggle between them. So should you want more of a grey, you can turn it down a bit there. I kind of like that, even it sort of like lifts it up a little bit. But anyhow, in terms of functionality, this is how you create that look, and I kind of like it. I'm a sucker for a black background for some reason. Maybe it's because of the kind of artist I am, but when I'm making things and I've got something in my head that I want to make, I almost focus on the asset rather than focusing on the scene. It's like I've got two modes. I'm either making assets or something like conceptual, or making a scene. And in this case, I almost like the black. But if you didn't want that, you could literally just delete the black Octane environment here and sort of play around with something else. So obviously, just super rundown. I've done this in every single tutorial, but the way this works is you've got one Octane sky, which is primary. Obviously, this is what the actual lights are reflecting off object-wise. And you've got a second one here, which is what's just visible in the composition, right? So you can leverage that. You can literally hop in here. If you've got a HDRI, which is just like a grey background, or maybe like white or something like that, I think in Studio Basics here, you can sort of like drag about. This has got some quite nice white gradients, right? So say perhaps you wanted some white, or there's even a super nice like gradient one here. You could just make sure you're hopping in here, setting this. This is quite important. If you drag a HDRI in there, it won't look right. You need to go C4D Octane and then head to image texture, drop in that, and then plug that in there. And you see if you set that to aces, you're getting the best of both worlds, right? So you're getting the reflections from the HDRI that you chose, and you can get the background from this. Obviously, this takes a lot of tweaking, because when you're working with specular materials like this, you're getting the black shine through the glass from behind. And so you kind of want to work with that and then find something which sort of like fits a little more in your scene, like this, for example. But you can literally go about rotating this. The power is on 5, so maybe you can tone that down 1 or fucking like 10 knocks, and you can move over and get some nice grey sort of backgrounds like this, which looks pretty cool. So leverage it, mess about, see what you can make. I'll be honest, this is actually probably one of my favourite sort of like cloth videos or like concept renders I've done. I think it looks pretty sick, and I'm happy with it. Play with your lighting as well. Obviously, we're not going for realism, so you can drag any of these about. Normally, I sort of like unspoken rule, I only use rotate X, but you can really do some cool stuff and create some nice looking renders. Mess with the post effects as well. Of course, goes without saying. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Comment if you have any more suggestions. I'm lapping them up at the minute, so I'm pushing out content like no other. And I will see you in the next video. So thank you everyone for watching.